there are other options. One was that using cameras that are aimed at the license plates that are only triggered at a certain speed. Another was what you just described, flashing. But I kind of think that a lot of people might want to game the system and see how high they could get the number. But speed bumps are one, but there are different various kinds of speed bumps. There's also crosswalks with clearly marked. But the problem is the streets that are on that dead end or T end on South Union, there's no way to put a crosswalk in because it goes to somebody's driveway or somebody's yard or something like that. Maybe there is, maybe not. I don't know. There's also really minor kind of bumps that are available too, but there are a lot of options, and I'm going to keep my eyes on all these options. The police force is much too understaffed to push on enforcement because it's hard. So there might be other. I would like to see it non-invasive to residents, so the residents aren't really annoyed and inconvenienced by anything that's done.
Thank you very much, Craig. Yeah. Is there anyone else?
Yes. Alan Matson, I'm actually the ward clerk now for Ward 6. First thing I want to say is we did not have an election on Tuesday. And I bring that up because a good number of people did reach out to me and say, I've been working elections for ages. You never got a hold of me. So, if you see people or people bring that up, there was no election. There will be one in March. Town meeting day will be coming up. And I think the community who have been active in elections will start hearing from our, myself and our inspectors in early December, because we need by mid-January to have a list of folks down to City Hall who will be working the elections. So we'll be getting at least expressions of interest to work on the elections. Ward 6 over the last several years, thanks to a prior clerk, have
Who was that again?
which is great.
Yeah.
Has been really well staffed, and we've had well prepared staff and had run very good elections for the last several times. So I only hope that we're able to continue that. I expect that we will be holding the elections in the elementary school gymnasium cafeteria like we did the most recent election. It was a location that many people were not familiar with, but hopefully now the second election they will be. So that's the expectation. So elections will be coming up. If people are interested in working, you can actually track my email down online, or you could talk to me this evening. But at the next NPA and going forward, you'll be hearing more about us getting ready for the town meeting day election. And there's only one election in since last town meeting, and that's this upcoming one. But next year there'll be 3. There'll be the primary in August, and then there will also be the general election in November.
I got out just in time.
What?
I got out just in time.
Keep busy.
Something like that. So anyway,
Thanks, Alan. Anyone else? Any other announcements? Any other comments before we dig into our agenda? Okay. We'll move over to the Church Street Marketplace updates. I know we have Samantha McGinnis, the director of Church Street Marketplace, with us. I'll make some space for you here.
You have the presentation? Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha McGinnis. I'm the director of the Church Street Marketplace. I assumed that role in July of this year. Previously, I had been working for the marketplace for about 5 years before that. Appreciate you all taking the time to just hear an update from the marketplace and what we've been working on. Also work on just general downtown projects and events as well. So I'll touch on that a little bit. Mostly today, I'm just going to focus on the upcoming big season for us, which is the holiday season. That is our busiest time for all of the merchants and businesses down on the Church Street Marketplace. So I'm just going to talk through our plans for the holidays. Then I'll leave some time if there are any specific questions around the marketplace. And then I have some few updates after that, just on other programs and events happening in downtown. Great. I'll go to the next slide. So we kick everything off the day after Thanksgiving, November 28th, which will be here before we know it. We always kick it off with the Santa Parade, welcome Santa to the street. We have our colleagues at BPD and BFD participate in the parade and help us safely deliver Santa to the marketplace. And we always have lots of guests along the way as well. So we always have Miss Vermont, Miss Teen Vermont, Champ, Arrow, the Griffin from the airport, and lots more. So we're really looking forward to that kickoff event on the 28th. And then later that evening, we of course have the big tree lighting ceremony. Many people use this as a tradition. We love to see folks come out and enjoy this. The ceremony starts at 5:15 with carols. Then we do the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas performance with Bag of Chips. And then we have a Make-A-Wish kid flip the switch and turn on the tree just around 6 o'clock on the marketplace. So we are hoping for a brisk evening, no rain, maybe a little snow to get us all in the holiday spirit. After that, we'll be kicking off our festive Fridays. So each Friday throughout the rest of the month, between 4 and 8 p.m., we'll be having different festive Fridays. Just really encouraging community and folks to come out and enjoy the marketplace on those evenings. So the first one after the Santa Parade and the tree lighting, we'll be kicking off our window decorating contest, which will be in person this year. So the only way you will be able to vote is to come downtown and vote in person. And we'll also be having like a shop and sip event that evening. You can get some samples of different drinks as well as different nibbles from local businesses while you shop. And the following Friday, we will be having caroling. So the Burlington High School will be one of the groups that's caroling that evening. We will have a Burlington Community Choir that's also caroling that evening. So another really great Friday night. And then we're ending it all with a Light Up the Night event. We're working with Run Vermont to do a fun run with glow sticks and light up stuff for everyone to enjoy, just a mile loop. And then we're actually going to have a light parade after that on the marketplace. So think SDR Lynn cement mixer and other vehicles all decked out in lights. So we have a great lineup of fun Friday activities. And outside of that, so window decorating contest will be happening for about a week and a half. We'll have best overall marketplace, best side street, most creative, and most festive. And the businesses get really competitive about this. There's a lot of pride involved with the window decorating contest. So I know they will be vying for all of your votes. There's a lot of pride with winning these different categories. So please come down and check those out starting December 5th. And outside of that, we'll have Santa visits happening every Saturday and Sunday on the marketplace between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. We have a free hot chocolate program. So any purchase with participating merchants on the marketplace, you get a coupon for free hot chocolate. We have our North Pole Express mailboxes where folks can send letters directly to Santa. We have a kids train that runs every Sunday, same hours, 10 to 2. We're going to have a snowflake hunt for families. There'll be snowflakes hidden in different stores. Kids can go find them and then redeem their kind of card with all of their finds for an ornament from Homeport. We're also excited to have a postcard club this year. So there'll be postcards at golden hour with different marketplace images that you can send to folks that weren't able to join you on the marketplace this holiday season and let them know you wish they were there with you. And I think we're almost to the end of the holidays. Of course, we'll be bringing back all of the festive decorations that the marketplace is known for. So all of the trees along the street will be lit up, light pole banners, garlands, bows, intersection banners. And we have our giant menorah. We'll be doing a special Hanukkah celebration on the 21st on the marketplace. I believe that's at 4. And then, of course, we're doing a ton of marketing and advertising to remind folks to support the small businesses here in Burlington and come downtown this holiday season. So this is just a list of all the different places we will be advertising and ways that we'll be getting the messaging out about visiting businesses on the marketplace this holiday season. I think that's it. Any questions related to the holidays or the marketplace in general before I dive into citywide? Yes.
What is Bag of Chips?
It is the name of the performance group. So it's actually a lot of folks that are involved in Lyric. And they have Lyric Theater and they have a separate theater group called Bag of Chips. It is a very funny name. We did learn this year that Serena, who is the one who heads it all up, this will be her 25th year participating in the tree lighting, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. Yes.
Can you do something about all the vacant buildings?
Yeah.
Storefronts, you've got all these store owners competing for the best storefront.
Yeah.
And then here's somebody who does a great job, but right next door, it's a vacant building. It just detracts from his. Could you do something to even put wrapping paper up? Or I
Yeah.
was just thinking maybe let grade schools come in and decorate those vacant storefronts.
Totally. We have actually partnered with the Fletcher Free Library on that in the past. We've done a story walk in a vacant window. So we've printed out or taken a book and put out the pages. So that could be activation. And we've partnered with Frog Hollow as well to get some kids art to put in windows. So we can definitely look into that. We're actually currently looking for a space to put Santa into. And it's a good/bad problem as I keep reaching out to vacant storefronts and everyone says, oh, I have someone coming for December 1. I'm like, that is wonderful, but could it be January 1? I definitely hear that, and we're working, we'll work with some partners again to see what we can do in different windows.
One other question.
Yeah.
What are the prizes for the 4 or 5 best windows?
We're actually really excited. We have some great media sponsors this year that are offering advertisement to those businesses. So Vermont Public is offering an ad for the first place winner, and then 7 Days in Bang will be offering advertisements for the other. So pretty exciting. Yeah, and bragging rights, which is pretty exciting. Yeah.
Last couple of years, there were vendors and stalls in City Hall Park.
Yeah, we will not. Yeah, we will not be doing the winter market in that sense this year. We are moving the winter market indoors. So we're going to be doing 2 separate weekends. Actually, one will be here in the South End. On the 29th, we'll be doing a winter market in the new BCA space at 405 Pine. And then on the 12th and 13th, we'll be doing a winter market pop-up in Contois Auditorium. At City Hall. It was budgetary and labor. It takes a lot of work for us to build all those sheds. And so we're taking a pause this year and doing an indoor model for this season.
It used to be in Contois.
Yeah.
For a long time, right?
Yeah, so kind of going back to our roots there.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice spot for it.
I'll just touch on a few citywide holiday happenings. So the next one, actually perfectly timed, is if you click to the next slide, is the winter markets. So as I just mentioned, moving them inside. Oh no. But anyways, moving inside 405 Pine, and then the other one will be on Contois. We hope you can check those out. We are also doing a new initiative this year called Celebrate Burlington. Again, working with all different city departments to just kind of talk about what is happening throughout the city during the colder months. Q1 tends to be the slowest month for a lot of businesses, and really trying to promote that they're still there, they're still open. I know we tend to hibernate and stay inside, but really encouraging folks. There's still so many interesting and fun things happening throughout the colder months in Burlington, not just on the mountains. So we're pushing that effort through Celebrate Burlington. We're also working with the BCA. Actually, I think you got to go back 2 slides on winter lights. So I'm collaborating with Zach Williamson at the BCA to just add some additional lighting throughout the downtown. I think we really notice it now with the time change, how quickly it gets dark. So we're working to add some additional lighting, especially on particular corridors between the parking garages. So Leahy Way, College Street, Cherry Street, trying to add some more light. It's more decorative lighting, but I think it will just add to the warmth and the light in the overall downtown for those colder months. And then forward a couple, Main Street will be open, which is very exciting. So starting at noon on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, Main Street construction will stop and Main Street will be completely open until sometime in April. So no more detours getting into the downtown. Hopefully that helps South Union Street, and just encouraging folks to come downtown and know that construction will be halted until sometime in the spring. And I think that was it. Any other questions on other downtown programs or events?
When you say Main Street will be open, will SD Ireland will move all of its heavy equipment?
I believe,
Streets.
yeah, so parking and the street will be open to two-way traffic. They will still be doing some light work. So there may be times where they're working on a particular lamp post, or they might be adjusting something smaller, but no full lane closures until the spring. Yeah. And just encourage folks, Church Street Marketplace, and Love Burlington is the other branch that I help oversee. So follow those too, or check out the websites to keep track of everything that's going on.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
And you might not know the answers, which is fine. I'm curious, when we were talking about the empty windows on Church Street, do you have a sense for what the occupancy or vacancy rate is?
Yeah, so right now it's at about 10%, so which is like a little bit higher than we would like to see it. The encouraging thing is we are still seeing a lot of interest in filling those spaces. And we do have some long-term vacancies, like the mall has been vacant for a number of years, and other things like that. So it is something that we definitely have our eye on and are working to kind of continue to make sure those spaces are being filled, and that's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, there's been a lot of energy put into downtown. Are we seeing benefit from that?
Yeah, I say maybe I'm forever an optimist, but I really feel like we're on, like, it really feels like something great is coming. Like the energy is feeling different, it's feeling really positive and exciting. I am sure Chief Burke will talk on some of the changes that we've seen in the downtown over the last year, and it feels exciting and vibrant, and we're really trying our part to add to that and continue to make spaces and events for people to come down and enjoy. I think one of the biggest things and hurdles with the downtown right now is just the kind of reputational damage that's happened, and working to reintroduce people to Burlington and have them come and see what Burlington is like today. We did a event at the beginning of October called Construction Fest, which we partnered with the library. Fabulous. And we also partnered with the Dad Guild, which was another amazing group here in Burlington, and we had all different kinds of construction vehicles, really just leaned into the construction vibe, and we saw over 2,000 folks come out and families to the marketplace that day, and it just really felt so vibrant and so good. It was really nice to see, and we're hoping we can encourage more events like that to just reintroduce people to Burlington and realize that we're still here and we still have a lot going on. Yeah.
Great.
Are you continuing to track Canadian shoppers at Church Street Marketplace?
Yeah.
And what you're seeing, and are there any sort of responses to that?
Yeah, I don't have any updates on Canadian tourism specifically. We do track foot traffic on the marketplace. Unfortunately, our data does not collect international visitors. There are better regulations for cell phones outside of the US for the tracking data. So we haven't, so we don't have that specific data, but we've been following foot traffic data in general. And I am expecting to get a report in the next week or so over the summer months, which I think will be really important for us to look at and just see kind of how much of a dip did we really see compared to last summer. We have seen numbers decreasing over the last couple of years. So it will be nice to see if those numbers are shifting at all. I know anecdotally, one of the merchants I was talking to on the street this week said their October was up by quite a bit. So it was really nice. I think the foliage season was really strong, which was great.
Any other questions? Okay, we are right on time. Down to it. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Thank you so much.
For all that you do. And so write down everything.
Yes, I hope to see you down.
Yes, I will absolutely be there. Next up, we have Fletcher Free Library updates with Mary Danko.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us.
So great to follow Samantha because
You've been partnering on a lot.
yeah, we've been partnering on a lot, and I would say we're feeling it too. Like it just feels like we can see the VFW going up nearby us, and City Place is finishing it. It just feels like we're on the cusp of some really exciting things happening, of course, and we're in the downtown core ourselves. So it's really exciting, and I'm excited about more lights. I always think that Church Street is so magical this time of year. So So thanks for having me. I am a little bit late. I like to come in September when it is library card sign up month. So, but I'm a little bit late. And that's really what I've been going to the NPAs is to promote people to get their library card. And I'm not going to ask in this room who has a library card. But if you have one, great. And if you don't, we would love for you to come to the library and sign up. We just need some proof of residency. And I don't know if people know, we're now part of the home card system, which means that there are many other libraries throughout Vermont that you can borrow from. We've been working really hard to get to that place. Libraries believe in resource sharing, and while we're the biggest library in Vermont, we also don't have every single book. And so there might be a book at another library that you want. And what else was I going to add? I was going to add something else to that. Oh, if you have a library card, but you have friends or neighbors, maybe they don't have a library card, and you can talk to them about all the wonderful things that the library provides. And I like just to use this opportunity. I always think of the library as two spaces. We have our physical space, which is downtown. I think it's one of the most beautiful buildings in Burlington. And right now it's getting a preservation treatment, which is we're at about $2.6 million on investing into the repointing of the brick, I'm forgetting the name, the other stonework that's around it, as well as the windows. It's been a really wonderful project. So keeping that building, since it's been there since 1904, same roof, going is really important. And it's a beautiful space. And that's where we house our physical collection is, books, which is our bread and butter, but we also have all kinds of things. We still have DVDs that people are taking out more and more as streaming and all the different streaming. I don't know if you guys have streaming challenges in your life, but getting a good old fashioned DVD is for free, and we're all sharing them is a really great thing to do. And we have book discussion kits. We have a wonderful youth section and teen section, and we have our library of things. So we have cake pans and a metal detector and all those kinds of fun physical things. And then we have our online library, which a lot of people don't realize that your library card gives you entry into all kinds of digital services, ebooks, audiobooks, New York Times, you can get for free daily with your library card. We have something called Candid Foundation Directory. If some of you work for nonprofits or on nonprofit boards, this online database gives you access to all kinds of foundations that give out grants. There's a little bit of a limitation. You have to be in the library to use it. You can bring your laptop and you can access it through that way, or you can come to our tech center. And I find it to be a very intuitive program, but if you need some help, librarians are there to help you. But it's a great way to access all kinds of grants that are out there for your particular organization. And there's ways that you can filter to get a little bit more direct hit on that. We also have access. Libraries don't carry back issues of newspapers and magazines anymore, but we have access to tons of databases that you have access to. One of the things I always try to remind people is, and I think people think a lot about AI right now and what it does. And I remind people that AI is scraping what is out there. And libraries have a lot of things that aren't out there on the internet, right? Not every book is digitized. Not every article is digitized. Oftentimes empirical research type reports are not digitized. They may go far back. We have access to those things. And if we don't have it within our library or our databases, we can get it for you. We also have access to something called Novelist, where if you certain books that you like to read, it recommends other books that you might want to read. It's not like Amazon, where it's looking at your algorithm of what you've purchased in the past. These are librarians that read all different kinds of books, and they try and match books to that have to do with more tone and maybe a little bit of what you like to read in styles. So I'm not even touching on everything, but if you go to our website and you go to online library, you'll see all the tons of digital resources. And finally, I'll just talk about, we have tons of programming too, book discussions, we have youth programs, sing-alongs, yoga for kids, story times, all kinds of things. We like to think we have something for everybody, but we're always open to listening for if you think there's something else the community needs that the library can provide, we're here to listen. Whew, I felt like that's a lot, and I still didn't touch everything, but I wanted to leave it open for some questions too.
So, yeah, and I had mentioned this when I contacted you. Part of what we wanted to hear about was how the library creates a safe and comfortable space for all users. There have been times when there's been a sense that it's been dominated by unhoused people, and I heard people saying that they were uncomfortable going into the library. That was a year or two ago. I haven't heard anything like that recently. I haven't experienced anything like that in the time I've been in the library. But I just would love to hear you talk about what the library staff does to be welcoming and comfortable for everybody who needs to use the library for whatever kinds of reasons.
Great, I appreciate the question, and the thing is, because we are a public building, anybody can come in, and we don't know what their background is or what's going on in their lives. However, we do require everyone to behave in a certain way so that everybody can enjoy the library. So that's what we monitor, is behavior. And some folks are going through more challenging times than others. All staff are trained in we call it's verbal judo. And so that's how we manage behavior, is we go up to, it's all grounded in kindness and compassion, but also to get compliance to whatever rule we have. So we go up to folks, we introduce ourselves, and we tell them what the rule is, and we try and get them to compliance. We had contracted security for a long time, and after talking to different libraries throughout the country, we realized some of them actually had security staff that they hired, and they felt that that was a better way, because then the security staff become a part of the team. And so we did that, and that has been a huge help. And for a lot of reasons, we can do the cultural competency training, we can monitor them, they have access to our network, they have access to keys. There were a lot of things about using contracted folks that were just, because of the nature of being a government institution, was hard. So that's been a huge help. The other thing we've done is we now have a Howard Street outreach team member who is embedded at the library. So they are there from Tuesday through Saturday. This is just started. This is a pilot. It has been wonderful. And we're still, because we're in the beginning stages, we are still learning the positive outcomes of this. But it has been helpful having somebody who has, his name is David Lines, and he has a corner office in the main room of the library, and it's glassed in. And he's been wonderful. And because he works for the Howard Center, he has access to things that we would never have access to, cases. And he's talking with the folks who are on Howard Street outreach that are working out in the downtown core. And so there's just a lot of great communication that happens that way. And so I would say with both of those, different ways that we're approaching monitoring behavior at the library, I think I have felt, and we've talked to staff, feel like things are just much better, much better managed. And it's actually allowing the librarians to do their jobs more, because we have this new model that we're working through. That was a long answer, sorry. We've been working on it, yeah.
And I'll just say, I have seen staff members working with people who are clearly in distress with so much compassion. It's really like, I have such respect for everybody who I've seen on your staff who has to handle one of those tough situations, doing it with so much heart.
Thank you. Well, and we want people to use the library. For so many of them, this is a place where they need to be, and they want access to all those things. So our job is to get them to be able to be in the library, but thank you for saying that, and I will pass that along to staff. Cause I think I have the most amazing staff, and I see that in their work too.
Yeah, I'm Mark Howe, and I just want to put in another plug because I volunteer at the library every week. And I too have experienced such a sense of increasing calm and there's a great sense of competence among staff members and I'm a fan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You I've run and encountered so many people who say, oh, I don't have a DVD machine anymore. Do you lend out DVD machines or just the DVDs?
Just the DVDs.
Oh.
However, I did price check them recently. They're like $30. They're like I think you get it for like $24.99 even at Best Buy.
Less expensive than the shovels and tools.
Well, for some streaming services, that's 1 month of a streaming service. Yeah. And I can get really library nerdy too, but all of those, digital things too they're tracking you, right? They're data mining too, all those things. So we like to think of the library as also protecting your privacy and confidentiality. And hopefully coming into the library too, I think is a way to serendipitously find things, right? Like we're not a corporation who's like pushing things at you. You should read this and you should do that and you should that. We kind of believe in we're there to spark imagination and creativity, but you have to bring yourself sometimes to these things.
Just a quick question on one of the services, digital services you didn't mention. Do you still have Canopy?
We still have Canopy. Yeah, I told you I can't mention.
So I throw that one at you.
Yeah, so
because I used that one.
is a streaming for movies that we have, and they're often documentaries or foreign films, sometimes.
Yeah,
things that are a
more
little
like
bit-
going to the VTIF festival, but online, right?
Yes, yeah, and it's totally free. And if you have a smart TV, you can get it through there. I believe you can get it through Roku as well.
Yeah, I've done it even overseas when I work in Puerto Rico a lot right now. And so I sometimes alone in my room and I watch Canopy through the library.
That's so great.
Rather than having to suffer through some horrible soap operas.
This week I attended the Civic Reads on Tuesday night, which I don't know if anybody else knew about this, but it was a great discussion with three UVM professors, political science professors about and Applebaum book, Autocracy Inc. And that was the second program, the second book discussion in that program. So will there be more of those types of events coming up?
Yes, they were very successful, so we hope to do some more in the spring. I will say our next big program that's coming up, which is November 15th, I believe, is Nonfiction Comic Fest, which will be at the library. It is the only nonfiction comic fest in the country right now. I think it's our third or fourth year doing it, and there will be all kinds of folks there and panels that are going on. So I think we have amazing programming too. Yes, look for more Civic Reads, but in the meantime, I think we also have 4 or 5 different book discussion groups that are going. And again, I'm library nerdy bias, but framing some of the tougher conversations that we're having right now in our world around books is such a wonderful way to talk through things. And I found that night to be very, very good. Very good, yeah. And lots of great opinions and thoughtfulness, and yeah, it was a good night.
I just want to say, one of the films in the VTIF Film Festival is The Librarians. Has Vermont had any kind of book banning threats?
Wow, okay, so yeah, that. So I am also past president of the Vermont Library Association, and we do have an intellectual freedom committee. We don't, some of the things that get reported to what I call as our mothership, the American Library Association. So we might not hear about it. We do try and support librarians that are going through tough times. As far as I know, there hasn't been a book that has been totally banned right now, and we haven't seen a lot of the efforts throughout the country have been group efforts, oftentimes backed by Moms for Liberty, and we haven't seen that quite here yet. However, I would say we do hear about other kinds of rumblings, and we try and support librarians in that way. We are concerned about what we would call soft censorship, because right now in other states where my colleagues are at, they are really feeling some tough stuff right now. They are having book bans. There's laws that keep trying to get passed in different states that actually punish librarians for having certain books on the shelf. Or they are being required to remove certain books on the shelf. So when that kind of gets in the ether, has kind of a chilling effect. We especially were in Vermont, we worry about the librarians who are in small communities where they live and work and they see people, in the general store or at the post office, and they're doing their very best to provide diverse materials, diverse viewpoints, but they also have to live in these communities too. So we are very mindful of them. We try and support them, and we try and support the librarians that are really facing legislative impacts on them, and bringing that forward, because we have one case right now that is from Arkansas that has actually been put forth to go possibly to the Supreme Court. It has gotten that far through the court circuits. It's a freedom of speech issue, which I always try and remind people that is a nonpartisan issue that is in the Constitution Bill of Rights. So it would be interesting if the Supreme Court took this up. But most of the cases that we have seen right now haven't gone anywhere, and actually some communities that have put these cases forward have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, because many judges are just not going to go for that kind of censorship right now.
The Librarians is, I think, the name of the film.
It is the name of the film, right? And they follow a few librarians, some of which who have lost their jobs for refusing to censor books.
It's something about children's books. That's general, not all.
Not all, but some, but also that it's really hard. It's all over the map, but categorically, it seems that they want to remove books that are LGBTQ, or books that are by people of color, or about people of color, or history that focuses on, the Black experience. Yes.
When is construction going to be finished with the library? Or renovation, I should say.
So right now, we're hoping to do a much bigger renovation on the interior, but this exterior piece should be done mid-December. I made that big face like
Yeah, you're good.
I'm hopeful that it is done by mid-December. It was quite the project. The windows had to be taken out and shipped to New Hampshire. Because it's a historic building, there's been great care that's been taken in mortar colors, mortar profiles. I never thought there'd be so many conversations about that. But I think it makes me feel good, and I hope it makes all of you feel good that such care is being taken on this historic building.
What's the plan for the interior? Is that something that's in progress, or?
It's in progress, and it's based out of, we've been getting a lot of feedback about, what they would like a 21st century library to look like. We need more meeting rooms, we need more bathrooms. We would like a better teen area. We would like a youth space that, right now the youth is in the historic area, so we can't do too much with that. So there's all these different things that we would like to, and that we've also been hearing from the community.
How's that fund? How are you able to raise funds for that kind of project?
So we have a capital campaign committee, and we're working on a kind of a silent phase right now, and we're looking at all kinds of grants as well, and different foundations. And the work that's being done now, we had a national service grant that came through from Senator Leahy, who did a congressional directed spending request, which was lovely, and the city matched it. We also had an NEH grant that we got, but unfortunately that was rescinded by the current president administration. So we lost that piece. We had the city match, and then our friends at the Fletcher Free Library were able to fundraise and make that whole. So we're very excited about that. And I will say the Friends of the Fletcher Free Library, which is our 501c3 nonprofit supporting agency, is the group that's taking on the bigger renovation as well. They will be our fiscal agent, and we just actually passed City Council on Tuesday. They signed an MOU for this project. So the city and the Friends of the Fletcher Free Library have a memorandum of understanding for the future capital campaign that they're working on. So good progress is being made.
Thank you very much. We're just
All
right
right.
about on time. No, we're
Yeah.
actually doing great. Any last comments, questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Mary.
you so
Really
much.
appreciate it.
And don't forget the reason why I was here, library cards.
Yeah.
Sign up for library cards.
Thank you. And the weekend longs are amazing. Bring my kids meals.
Oh.
So yes.
I can
No, my-
peek out of my office over the balcony
Yeah.
and see all the kids and strollers in there.
Oh.
I love it. I love
It's
it.
so much fun. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, as we've seen, we have a community safety theme this evening across a few different angles in the city. So we're happy to have Chief Burke here joining us to talk a little bit about any community safety updates, and certainly if folks have questions. So thank you for joining us, Chief Burke.
Yeah, of course. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. Just by way of introduction, my name is Sean Burke. I'm the privilege of serving as your interim chief of police. I previously served as a Burlington police officer from 1997 until 2018, at which time I was eligible for retirement, and South Burlington needed a police chief. So I was selected as their police chief and served there for the better part of 7 years before the mayor had a kind of an emergent need or an acute need for a police chief, and I came back to serve as the interim as the city of Burlington will embark on a permanent chief search. So I started here the end of March of this year, so just about 8 months in at this stage, and the organization's different in a lot of ways. Earlier there was a comment made about our lack of sworn human resources. That is a fact. We have 59 sworn officers on the team currently, which is far too few. But we also have professional staff that have joined us in the work. So we have our community service officers. BPD's had community service officers since about 2011. They do things like direct traffic. They're our primary animal control response. They go to noise complaints, things that you don't necessarily need to be a certified Vermont law enforcement officer to do. And they are on the patrol teams with our patrol officers. And then we have our community support liaisons, and they are less than clinician, but social workers that are field-based. And they too are part of our incident response model. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And we also have kind of a force multiplier with our relationship with the Howard Street Outreach team. That team is predominantly in the downtown core. It's been around for a couple of decades, I'm sure, as you all know. It was really developed by the Marketplace Commission and served the Inner Fire District community or section of Burlington for a long time. Now they have a more expanded role. So how do we get our work done? We're an organization that attends to about 30,000 incidents per year. That's inclusive of calls from the public and proactive activity that the employees do. And for the most part, it is work that you do need an actual police officer to respond to. However, we do know, because of the growing mental health crisis in our community, the growing substance use disorder crisis that's going on in the community, and the situation with the unhoused, that a lot of the calls to the police are social service related. So more recently, we've actually leaned into the notion that you can do more with less police officers, and we're testing that in a couple of different ways. One, the street outreach team from Howard, they're our primary responders on incidents related to mental health and suicidal persons. And then our community support liaisons are primary responders on welfare checks and overdose. So this is all dependent on any danger acuity that's reported or any really actionable history that we know of the parties involved. And that seems to be going well. We've just rolled out that portion out, or this program out, in September. So I don't have any really a sample size of data that we can rely upon to say that it's going great or it's going bad, but we hope to, kind of suss that out and determine if there's other service areas where we can kind of lean in with these other response models. For the most part, a lot of our responses, even with our social service providers, do necessitate a police officer. So that'll be a co-response. And what's efficient about how the team works is that even in a co-response, the minute that the scene is rendered safe, a police officer can then go back in service. That's particularly important because between injuries and officers that are out for investigations related to force application, we typically have 4 officers and a supervisor on the day shift, 5 officers and a supervisor on the evening shift, and 2 officers and a supervisor on the midnight shift. There's a bit of overlap between evenings and midnights because we work a 10-hour schedule in patrol. So between 10 at night and 2 in the morning, we do have that overlap where ideally we have 7 officers and a couple of supervisors around. That's really important when, on weekend nights or hot summer nights when we're incredibly busy. But it's simply not enough. So I'll talk about our recruitment issues and our retention strategies in a moment. I want to just stay on operations. When I started back with the police department in March, I knew that City Hall Park and the marketplace has always perennially been a challenge. And having stayed pretty close to what was going on in Burlington over the years I was gone, I knew that the police department had done a really good job of addressing Buell Street, which was a challenge in previous summers, and also that the city had made investments in improving conditions of the parking garages. So it was logical that the final frontier was going to be City Hall Park in the marketplace, and that lived up to expectations this year. A lot of what influences behavior in public civic spaces is the weather. So we had a kind of a long, cool, wet spring, which held some behavior down. But then we had a hot, dry summer, which brought out a lot of different consequences. I'll frame it as consequences. Preparing for that and responding to that, we've been all in with our staff in terms of downtown. So any amount of their discretionary time, meaning when an employee is not otherwise attending to a call from the public, they're spending on foot downtown, either in the park or on the Church Street Marketplace. That's inclusive of both of the whole team. So sworn officers, our community service officers, as well as our community support liaisons. And I think, our data is very clear that we've done more of that work this year than any of the prior 5 years. There was some speculation that we were not necessarily enforcing the law while we were down there. That is not true. Our data shows that we were with great rigor enforcing the law. But a lot of what folks see in terms of disorder or things that don't seem right aren't necessarily a violation of law. There is, no shortage of, or there has been no shortage of public drug use, public drinking, and things that are controlled by ordinance. And those were enforcement actions that we're taking. And, the city has also brought on other additional resources to kind of get at some of these root cause behaviors. So one of the projects that came online this summer, thanks to the Department of Public Safety, working in concert with the administration, is a program called the Situation Table. So this was a response system, if you will, that convenes all of the social service providers, all the government actors in the space that are out there serving humans, and convenes us on a weekly basis, where anyone that is trained in part of the group can present what is called a situation. Is typically a person, and that person has an acute elevated risk of harm to themselves or the community. All the providers in the room go through a filter process. The final filter, the final step in the filter process is developing a response team. And that response team is charged with going out within 24 to 48 hours with some type of intervention to reduce that person's risk. That's a great short-term intervention. It does not really get at some of the long-term case management that folks need to succeed. And it certainly doesn't get to the folks that are simply treatment and service resistant. But it has really shown how rich the Burlington community is in terms of resources that are available, and it does synchronize work. So this isn't a duplication of work, but rather everyone goes to a room. Typically, it's in the courthouse on Wednesdays. The meeting lasts for an hour. It's the process is very structured. We work through it rather quickly, and then you're out, and the Filter 4 team has to be out on the street within 24 to 48 hours to do those interventions. So we're definitely seeing some efficacy there. The other systems of care that we tend to rely on, there have been improvements. So I'll just speak real quickly about First Call, which is the clinician level of the Howard Center. And there are often times, unfortunately, where we need to seek emergency warrants to bring people to the hospital for an evaluation. And we've seen greater throughput in that system. And we've seen a little bit in terms of improved response from the mental health apparatus at the hospital, which is really controlled by the Department of Mental Health, and holding more people for treatment that are really at risk to themselves or others that were formerly kind of spun out in the street rather quickly, which was frustrating. The other place where the police department tends to make a lot of referrals is the criminal legal system, of course. There's been a lot said about the backlog. That is absolutely true. The court stayed closed for a really long time post-pandemic. And now the prosecutor's office is working through all of the cases that need and deserve a trial. So many of those have been murders or attempted murders that have occurred right here in Burlington. And there's simply no space for misdemeanants that have racked up a ton of low-level crime to have their trial if they want one. There's also a bit of sport in this for people that are familiar with the criminal legal system. They know that there's no room for their trial to be carried out. So the longer they kind of draw this out, typically the better the plea agreement will get to move their case along. So more recently, through a collaboration with the city administration, the mayor's office, and the governor's office, we were presented with this opportunity where we have a special docket that's operating here in Burlington. So dedicated courtroom, dedicated judge, prosecutor, and defense attorney. And there's a list of about 100 folks. They have to have 5 or more open dockets, touch AHS or Department of Mental Health. There's a few different metrics in there. And the prosecutor is working through addressing these cases. And it seems to be really moving some of these more persistent folks that have been kind of entangled in the criminal legal system. It's also testing out better coordination with people that are pretrial, linking them up with services, and then the Department of Corrections actually doing pretrial monitoring of those folks. And that's something that's never really been done in Vermont before. I know that we have a local lawmaker with us here today, and he probably recalls it wasn't this biennium, but the previous one, where this notion or this law about pretrial monitoring being done by the Department of Corrections was actually enacted, but it was actually only being beta tested, I think, in Essex County, which is way out in the eastern part of the state and doesn't have a strong population there. So it'll be good to see to pressure test it here in Burlington. So we're optimistic about what's going on there in terms of getting at some of the more persistent actors in our downtown, but also like getting the criminal legal system back in a place where there's adequate throughput. Because when you think about deterrence relies on 2 things. One, there has to be some credibility to the idea that you will be caught for your behavior. And then there has to be some type of swift intervention to correct that behavior. So the idea that a person is arrested for something and they stay out on the street and they may face a long incarcerative sentence, that doesn't do it. Right? Long incarcerative sentences really don't do it unless you're trying to keep dangerous people away from the public for a long time because of beyond rehabilitation. So what we really need to do is figure out how to use our current criminal legal system in a more efficient way so people have a swift consequence that's married to some type of service that gets at the root cause of their behavior. So I think this pilot project that's going on here in Burlington, through the relationship with the mayor and the governor, is going to identify what works. It's also going to identify other gaps in the system, and I think that's a great step forward. I've done this job now for the better part of 32 years. I'll tell you that the criminal justice systems hasn't worked, super well in all that time. And, I think, so, I'm optimistic about this. Another big area of focus for the police department, obviously, is recruitment and retention of police officers. We have a really solid team with us, but they're young. We were missing a critical segment of employee middle management. So when I say there's a supervisor on a shift, each patrol team needs a sergeant, someone to mentor and lead and make independent decisions and direct resources. And that's critical, one, because we're in high liability work. Two, our employees need that time to develop and get their legs under them. And then three, police departments do face litigation on a regular basis by the nature of our work. And there's kind of three things that the court looks at when the city is facing litigation is, what is the department's policy on any particular act? What is the officer's training in response to that act? And then what did supervision? There's a duty to supervise that. And if you have any kind of vulnerability in those three areas, it can become very, very expensive to settle litigation. So we have worked in quick fashion over the last couple of months to identify and promote a couple of new sergeants. They're in field training now. So finally, all 6 of our patrol teams will have their own sergeant. And then that allows us to use our 3 patrol lieutenants to function as they're designed, as we call that watch commander. So they are in charge of the overall enterprise. Within police headquarters, we also dispatch for ourselves and dispatch for Burlington Fire Rescue. There's a lot of inquiries that come into the department. There's a lot of policies and procedures and protocols that we have to account for. And the lieutenant is in charge of kind of the entire operation, while the sergeant is in the field dealing with the operations and directing the officers. So optimistic about bringing that online and having that finally back in place. And then the other area of operations that's important to the police department is we still have a functioning detective bureau. So anything that requires extensive investigation, so that could be nonviolent felonious conduct, but in most of the time they're working on violent felony cases, like our unfortunate occurrence on the marketplace in August with a homicide. They've got an excellent clearance rate, and they work very, very closely with the prosecutor's office to make sure that we have mutual understanding of what the prosecutor needs in these instances and what we are asking for in terms of support from the prosecutor's office. So there's no surprises. And we are actually, exercising the system the way it should be in concert together, as opposed to being polar opposites. I think that was a challenge prior to my arrival here. So there's been a lot of improvements in that regard. I think other areas of operations that we have going on, I'm trying to think. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Let me talk about the state support of state law enforcement support. So as part of the governor's 14-point plan, there was an offer to have support from a variety of state law enforcement actors. And I worked with the colonel of the state police to figure out a schedule for where the state police could help us on the Church Street Marketplace. Back when I was a Burlington cop the first time, we would always have a dedicated marketplace patrol in the summer, and then in the winter, we simply don't have the bodies for that. So right now we're using the state police in that fashion. They're not responsible for making arrests or, doing much other than being present, because that makes people feel safe and makes the environment more welcoming. And we know that public safety is really part of the fabric that is the vibrancy that allows people to come to places like City Hall Park in the marketplace and have a great experience. So we're using them in that regard. The Department of Motor Vehicles has an enforcement team, and we're using them on the Beltline. That's an area where we see injury crash, often, unfortunately, not often, but all too frequently serious injury or fatality crashes. So they're helping us there. And then the Department of Liquor Control is helping us in the downtown bar district on weekend nights. So that's another area of our economy that's super important. It's also a flare to our vibrancy as well in Burlington. And I think it is an excellent environment when it's done correctly. And what do I mean by being done correctly? That is safely. So we're working with the local cabaret, the licensees, to remind them of their obligations under their entertainment permit issued by the city and also their state liquor license to follow rules, to keep underage kids out, to keep over service to a minimum. Because if we can do those two things, we have less violence in the downtown. That's just a fact. So we have been working closely with liquor control to kind of get that spun up. And again, when we were a police department of 90 and we had a lieutenant assigned to each area and officers worked permanent areas within the city, these were just easy neighborhood-based projects that we did intuitively as Burlington police officers. So again, right now, we can't do it all, but we certainly look for areas where we've experienced either violence or other disorder that's really harmful to the community and focus in on those problems. And I will say we're not across the finish line yet, but our data is indicating that violent crime is down this year. Gunfire is also down this year. And our proactive activity in terms of foot patrols and public engagement in the downtown is up. And I think that is all foundational to a police department that can form and maintain trust with her residents. And that's really what policing is all about. The police are the people. We have to do what the community expects. And I feel that we've got some good momentum right now. I will say this before I stop talking. The weather is coming our way again, right? It's getting colder out, which suppresses a lot of public facing nefarious activity. In the spring, we will need to be ready once again, because although some of the issues will have been addressed, not all of the issues will have been addressed. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Need to get water? That was all. Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you.
I'm not gonna let you rest.
I brought water.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you, you pre-answered a ton of my questions.
Yeah.
One question I have, and then I'll let other people ask and I may come back, gets to recruitment and retention. I mean, as far as I know, every police force in the country probably needs more sworn officers, as best I can understand. What is it that can make our community and our force appealing to the kind of candidates you're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're absolutely right. There's been dwindling interest in policing since 2014, dropped off even steeper in 2020. And this generation is interesting. I mean, I've got two boys, almost 22 and 18. And it's funny how, they're kind of free spirits, right? They're not looking for the good, solid 20-year job where you get a pension. My father was a police officer. I fell into this. My wife is a career nurse. I thought that maybe that would have sugared off in our kids. I've got one that's going to go in the Army. We'll see how that goes. He's at Norwich right now. But my other went right out of high school, knew college wasn't for him, and became a apprentice boat technician. So, he's thinking about life in increments of 5 years. So, generationally, I think there's some challenges that we need to better understand, because we've always been an industry that could just sit back and wait for applications. Things that harm us in Burlington, we've got some political influences that scare away candidates. I'll be, frank about that. And, there are things that I have great appreciation for, having good conversations about, greater oversight and what's police accountability look like. But I like objective, evidence-based conversations and not speculation about society will be great without police. I don't believe that. So that not only goes on here, but goes on in a lot of different communities. We have a very competitive collective bargaining agreement, we have a very handsome starting salary, great city benefits. So that all is in place. The way in which Burlington has been marketed over the last few years, I think, is deeply troubling. One of my first meetings when I came on back in March was with the Chamber of Commerce. And I told them kind of in a blunt fashion that whoever was in charge of marketing had done a terrible job. because it's not that bad. I mean, it's not great. We have our challenges, but it's not that bad in downtown Burlington. But to get right at the heart of your question, I really think we need to have our officers sharing their why. Why are they a Burlington cop? Why did they come to work? And be able to market that in ways on social media where people can see themselves in us and want to join us in this work. And, the way I try to sell to folks is if you want to be in urban policing in this state, there's only one place to be. You're going to work hard, but you're going to have any opportunity that you're willing to work for, because we have all the specialty assignments. We have police K-9, motorcycles, detectives, formal leadership, you name it, we do it. And you can have a rewarding career, but you've got to have, what it takes to get through our standards and to step up and do the work. So in terms of applications, we're up about 10%. The overall sample size number is not fantastic. So I think we've taken in about 70 applications or so, 72 applications this year. We've got some metrics being illustrated right now about where people kind of fall out of that process. A lot of people apply and then don't follow through. But just, to give you a little bit of insight on how we screen folks, you apply. Now there is a written test and a physical fitness test to go to the police academy. So we have to administer that. You have to go to a panel interview. That's where the lion's share of folks fall out. After the panel interview, we verify everything you told us through a polygraph examination. We lose a few folks there because of integrity issues. Again, there's not a lot of things that we can't work with. We've heard most things before, but sometimes people opt not to tell us about some sins that they may have. But integrity is foundational, so we've got to, remain, committed to our process. And then we do a background investigation to double check everything is what you have showed us to be. And if you can make it through that, we'll offer you a job. We will not compromise on our standards because it's easier, frankly, to manage vacancies than it is problem employees. So again,
I'm well aware of that.
yeah. One last piece on recruitment. Vermont runs two sessions of the police academy each year. It is residential. We pay you while you're there, but you do have to live in Pittsford, Vermont at the academy in a paramilitary setting for 17 weeks. And there's speculation that might be a barrier. I suspect that might be true, but you really can't measure what you don't know. We simply can't quantify who isn't applying to the police department because of the police academy, but there is a lot of conversation about that might be a barrier as well. So I think to kind of sum this up, we need to do a better job of marketing who we are as a department, who our officers are as people, what their why is. Burlington could help us attract better officers by doing a better job of marketing itself as a vibrant kind of transitional city that's, a great place to become a police officer or join any one of our city departments.
Well, first of all, I haven't been to a presentation of the chief for about a year or more. And I really want to thank you for all your attention to detail about the very specific means by which you can provide help and service to the people that are troubled in our downtown. Thank you so much. I'm just delighted to hear that, the attitude is so can do and try to fix, and I'm ecstatic. So I'm really happy to hear that. I just have I have a knowledge gap in a certain area. You talked about, what's happening with the City Hall Park and the garage. And I read a lot in the news about this, but I'm trying to understand why there are so many people now sleeping in front of those, like my bank and right along City Hall Park, and much more than there used to be. So maybe you could just help me understand that.
Yeah, certainly. So there are just more unhoused folks here in Burlington. And I think the count is somewhere between 270 and 300 individuals. And, the biggest chunk of those folks are down on the bike path and the urban reserve. And there's another, segment of the community that is up living in the downtown section. There was a city council resolution that passed early this fall that requested that we start to enforce closure of the park. So officers go in at midnight and then shortly after 4 a.m. based on availability to make sure that there's no one camping in the park. And that's helped in some ways. It's displaced some folks out as you can see. But again, this is an area where it's appropriate to enforce the closure of City Hall Park, and it's a legitimate use of police authority. There is the overarching question though, like where are these folks going to go? I know we are, heartened a little to know that the COTS team, they're bringing on 56 beds in the old Social Security Administration building on Pearl Street. There was a little hang up with the mattresses. They got stuck in customs apparently, but they're coming online next week. Yeah. I ran into the executive director of COTS today, and he told me the 17th is going to be good to go. So that helps, but there isn't a bed for everyone, and not everyone wants a bed either.
So, but this is my ignorance, but people can legally sleep in front of storefronts. Is that correct?
So it depends, and it depends on a few different things. One, if it's a city sidewalk, by ordinance, you can't block the sidewalk. Two, if it's in front of a business and they have like a little vestibule area, that is, private property, and you'll see that a lot of those storefronts are posted no trespass. So we will move those folks along. Another friction point when it rains is the drive-through at the bank. I still call it the Merchants Bank. I'm sorry. But that's an area now that's posted no trespass as well. So those are things that we work through day to day, because sometimes it's the same person that goes back to the vestibule or the drive-through. Sometimes it's someone new. But that's what we have to do. A lot of folks, when you look at our data set, our top 20 consumers of police services downtown, so meaning these folks are either arrested or a suspect or a person of interest in some type of criminal activity. Out of those top 20, 18 of them are unhoused. Our top incident type that we respond to in the downtown district is unlawful trespass. Our top arrest count in the downtown district is unlawful trespass, closely followed by people that are sought by the court on an arrest warrant and people that are in violation of the conditions of release once they've been arraigned. So there's, kind of a cyclical nature to what's going on, but I'm hopeful that the special docket is going to, one, kind of deal with the folks and their behavior now, and get those that are willing to engage in services the connection that they need, but also kind of highlight this issue about, we can't arrest our way out of an unhoused crisis. We're not going to arrest our way out of a mental health crisis. And I'm hopeful that maybe we can find different strategies with other providers to help us in that work.
Yeah, well, first of all, I really appreciate you taking on this job after leaving what one national organization proclaimed South Burlington to be the safest city in the United States. And you come to Burlington. That's really great of you. I don't know if that's accurate. But I've been involved in some correspondence with one of our state representatives, who's the
Both of us are.
regarding the information that I've been gathering monthly, that a lot of the drug dealers that are coming in from away have tinted windows, out of date temporary plates, scratched off VIN numbers, obscured VIN numbers, and so on and so forth. And I just found out a week or two ago that there's a company in Essex called Tinted Windows Vermont, and they're tinting windows, and it's illegal to have tinted windows in your driver and passenger side. So is this an enforcement issue with the state, the transportation Department of Transportation at the state level? They have an enforcement force. Or is it something more local that we could go after drug dealing in a way in that direction?
Yeah. So let's go back to South Burlington's fantastic. Great job. But I'll tell you that I got into this work to go to emergencies and toward the end of my career, as a police chief, you don't go to emergencies typically, but I thought as a police chief or a qualified police chief, by coming back to Burlington, I was again answering the call in a city that had afforded me a lot over my 21 years here. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. Tinted windows is a little more complicated. So before I get to tinted windows, because there's a few words I have to say about that. I want to just talk about drug trafficking. So I served when I was first a Burlington police officer. I worked in the old North End of Burlington in the late 90s. That was my assigned patrol district. And at that time, no one wanted to go to North Street, right? North Street was the most dangerous place in northwestern Vermont. Not true. All the drug dealers lived on North Street. Not true. But was it a tough neighborhood? Yes. Were people, kind of entrenched in poverty and high risk lifestyle behavior? They certainly were. And did some residents deal drugs? They did. Has it always been out-of-state drug traffickers bringing either cocaine, stimulants, or opioids to the state of Vermont to sell? Yes, that's emphatically true. There's no cocaine made here. There are no opioids made in the state of Vermont. All these drugs come from outside of our borders. They go into Florida. They come up the East Coast to New York City, in the Bronx, on Broadway. Dominican trafficking organizations package those, sell them in kilo or quarter kilo increments. They go out through southern New England into different trafficking organizations that go out from New York City to Philadelphia to different trafficking organizations. And those folks find their way here to Vermont. And they find their way here to Vermont because the price disparity between the source cities and the state of Vermont is so great, it's worth the risk. There's an economic model that even enforcement using federal sentencing guidelines in great frequency in this state hasn't deterred the drug traffickers from coming here. So it's like simple economics, right? There's supply and demand. And we worked very hard in the early 2000s in the first scourge of what was heroin, and then was amplified greatly through Purdue Pharma and the accessibility to OxyContin, kind of leveled the playing field. So when I was first a drug investigator, heroin had kind of this dirty mystique around it. So those that were engaged in high risk lifestyle, they would use heroin, but your everyday kid or young person typically wouldn't. Once people started abusing OxyContin, we saw that change. It leveled this playing field. Oxy and opioids became infested in every single neighborhood and every single demographic. And again, huge moneymaker for these drug trafficking organizations. And we were making cases then. Folks were being prosecuted in the United States Attorney's Office. They were incarcerated for a long period of time. But time and time again, it was like, fishing for panfish in the right bay with a little hunk of worm. They would just come back and hit it. And those trends still persist today. I will kind of push back on the notion that drug traffickers will risk exposing themselves by driving vehicles that are not lawfully registered, are 100% illegal. They may or may not have tinted windows because they don't want to be caught, right? And they know that in Vermont, pretext stops are legal, and that law enforcement could in fact stop someone for a bad paper plate or whatever infraction there might be, and then identify them as a drug trafficker. Now, are there drug dependent Vermonters that are middling drug deals, that are housing drug dealers in their apartment and then out in the street, making those transactions? That absolutely happens. Is there a greater concentration of tinted windows? There is. And the reason why there's more tinted windows is that under the inspection manual a number of years ago, the state simply allowed tinted windows to pass inspection. So you could go get your car inspected. You have this window tinted, that window tinted. You get your inspection sticker, and on the report that you get from the service station, it'll tell you, you passed, but your windows are illegal. And the same goes for a front license plate. It goes through the inspection shop. You passed, but you didn't have a front license plate. So now at least the law has reverted. I think it goes into effect in July of 26, actually, before it's once again prohibited under the inspection manual and maybe enforceable, where the tinted windows are illegal. Do I think we can pretext and force our way out of a drug crisis? I don't. I don't. And, like the remarks earlier about speeding and other traffic enforcement, I think this state needs to get serious. I'm going to use this opportunity, get serious about allowing government to use traffic cams. Traffic cams are prohibited right now for enforcement because they're predicated on license plate reader technology. We would not have to ask the Department of Motor Vehicles to sit on 127 if there were speed cameras up there. In that, if your car went by as a registered owner, you got a $150 ticket from the government that you paid, right? And if you don't pay it, your registration goes under suspension. Other states use it in great number. And what doesn't a camera have? Any human judgment. No bias, implicit or explicit. There's no ask to search your car. It's simply a regulatory enforcement action the government could take to make highways safer. And we could use them on, I would proffer that we would use them on controlled intersections, be it four-way stop signs or with traffic lights where there's evidence of traffic crashes, right? Do keep it legitimate. But that we cannot do that work right now because the use of license plate reader technology is essentially prohibited by state statute. So
the technology revenue neutral, positive, wildly positive?
I'm sorry.
Is that technology revenue neutral, positive, or wildly positive?
I don't know, but I would guess that it's wildly positive because, the technology is simply a camera.
Yeah.
So even like we bought really nice cruiser cameras in South Burlington for all the marked cars, and there's two camera lenses in this little tiny. One is to take the video, the other we couldn't use because it was an LPR, a license plate reader. So I can't imagine that the cost would be prohibitive for a program, but. Setting that aside, to kind of sum this up is you're thinking that we're going to crack something like the drug crisis and with enforcing tinted windows or really leaning in on pretext stops. I don't see that. And we've been using as part of our policing strategy in the downtown, our drug units. So we've got 4 detectives assigned to drug investigations, one of whom serves as a task force officer with the DEA. We've had them doing their work centered around City Hall Park and some of the other blocks. A lot of those cases we can't talk about because they've been picked up for prosecution by the United States Attorney's Office. A few have been in the news as of late. Those are intelligence-led investigations that can't really be questioned. Anytime that we're on the street buying drugs, it is video, audio taped, and actually live surveilled by undercover police officers. That's how we get at this work. And really, to get up the chain, oftentimes we'll end up buying from one person, and then we approach that person and they will cooperate because they've got a situation, and then we work the cases upward. And that's really how we should focus those efforts.
I just one clarification. I have to look at currently there is a regulation against the tinted windows, and I looked at the changes that were made from the current one that will go into effect in July of next year. And I have to look at it more closely because what you said that the inspection is going to change. I don't remember reading that, but I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, so that would be you'd have to go, if you want to look at the legislation, it's probably in the miscellaneous bill. And I believe they address the inspection manual, but I don't know 1,000% because I was frustrated by it. I was like, yeah, it's illegal, but they put all these stickers on cars and now everyone's got tinted windows. And it's like, how are you going to bring that? How are you going to reel that back in? Yeah.
I want to be mindful of time. We're running about 20 minutes over, actually.
I'm long.
Oh, no. No, that's my way of saying thank you. Yes. I'm sure there are lots of questions. I think you probably maybe one more if you have the time. Yeah.
I serve.
I was just gonna ask, how is morale?
Yeah, so morale's good. I think an inherent value of the mayor identifying the decision to bring in an interim that had served with the organization previously, I think that was wise. So the police department had been under the command of 2 outside chiefs prior to my return. And oftentimes police organizations or any organization is really in need of outside ideas. BPD was in need of someone from the inside to bring us back to BPD. So this organization has existed for 160 years. and, nationally known for community-based policing up until, 2019-ish or so. So I think staff really appreciates that. I think they appreciate that we can work well with entities like the mayor's office and the state attorney's office in a very professional manner to do our work. And they're also very excited that they got a new collective bargaining agreement this year that really compensates them well and gives them a great benefit package for the hard work that they're doing on behalf of the department. And I think they are cautiously optimistic about our ability to recruit in some more folks, so then they can start to have these opportunities that open up to serve in detectives, to have that special assignment, to join the formal leadership team in the future. I think that's all good. And I think it's really critical table setting to the search for the permanent chief. And then how can that person bring the organization forward?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like the timing question. Do you have any concerns right now, or what are you seeing in terms of coordination with federal law enforcement? Has anything changed? Do you have any concerns?
Yeah, no concern. We have obviously a very strong statewide mandatory model, fair and impartial policing policy. The Burlington Police Department has great fidelity to that policy. And I like to remind folks that, law enforcement in Chittenden County started this work back in 2010. We were I think the only county at the time that adopted what was then called a bias-free policing policy. And at that point, we stopped concerning ourselves with immigration status. We stopped working with Border Patrol even for interpreter services before there was technology. And it's just out of the DNA of Chittenden County law enforcement in my mind, but particularly here in Burlington. Our staff is keenly aware of the community values that Burlington holds around being inclusive. So, and we haven't had our federal partners kind of lean into us either. So, and there's kind of a small footprint of federal law enforcement investigators in the state. So the Border Patrol has a big presence on the northern tier, but we're outside of the enclave where they typically operate. And I haven't seen anything of concern in that regard. And again, super appreciative of our partnership with the United States Attorney's Office, and they have made room on their docket there for cases that matter. So drug trafficking, gun violence. They recently picked up a robbery of sorts at City Market involving a violent actor here in Burlington, and a stalking case that had a crack cocaine distribution element to it last week. So thankful for our partnership with the federal government at this stage, and also thankful that we haven't had to face the awkward situation that other communities have with ICE doing these raids.
Yeah. So far. No, thank you. Thanks for your time. That's a great question.
Thank you very much for your time, Jennifer. We really appreciate it. I know
Thanks.
we do hours more, so.
Well, happy to come back.
Yeah.
So thank you. You want your evening? You gotta scoot home.
Buddy, thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah, and Becca's on.
Oh, great.
So,
No
problem.
So next up on our docket here is our city councilors, Dr. Brian McKnight and Buddy Singh. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Becca, good to see you here too. Also, thanks everybody for having us back at the Ward 6 NPA. I think it's been a couple meetings since we were here last. I think last time we were here talking about housing. I guess I'll let Becca go first because she's online, and then maybe she can hop off and I'll finish off. Just I know
So,
she has
buddy, I think you should go ahead, and I'll just fill in any blanks.
Okay, I'll leave the charter things to you because you're chair of the charter change
Great.
committee. I wanted to go over a couple things that have come up in front of this NPA before. 2 meetings ago, we did talk about the RFP on recycling. And I know that was of interest of this MPA, and we got questions from a lot of people in Ward 6 about that. DPW put that out for an RFP. Only one provider came back with a 5-year contract, and the other smaller providers that could provide recycling services in lieu of Public Works doing it asked for 7-year contracts because that's, generally I think that has to do with purchasing more equipment, depreciation, and the expense of it. So that's going back to the DPW commission, to decide on a variety of options, whether we put it out to bid again for a 7-year, hold off on it and wait and talk about a full consolidated collection bid in the future. But just so you know that was on people's mind. I know it was a big topic of people in the city about wanting to retain recycling, but that's still ongoing and in process. We also had CDNR put out their syringe litter report. That was on our consent agenda a couple weeks back. For the council and the administration to take a look at, and hopefully there'll be some actionable policies coming out of that. We also had finally a new parks commissioner, or a new parks department director was where we voted on Phil Lewis, who comes from us from California, was voted in last week to be the new director of parks. Very impressive. I haven't had a chance to meet him. There was a couple of meetups with him, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. But very impressive credentials. Parks has been a focus a lot on our minds in this summer, through the transition, through the reduction in force, and some programming going off. And I would say for myself and I think a lot of people in Ward 6 and the whole South District, a lot of people's interaction with the city is with the Parks Department and our public spaces with parks. So I think this is really important that leadership void is now filled, and we should be thankful for the 3 interim folks that had filled those roles through a very turbulent time. And I know morale's down there, but hopefully this is a turn, now for parks, and we can look forward to some new programming and some better outcomes there. Additionally, Chief Burke took a couple of things I was going to talk about. The accountability court, like he's talking about that came through with the mayor's or the governor's 14-point plan. Zach Wright, who was formerly a Burlington resident and was, I think he was in Addison County, and now he's the prosecutor for that court. And so I think he's very familiar with Burlington, and it sounds like the first week has gone really well. And, Chief Burke spoke about the state troopers being here and being on Church Street during the day. I've seen them, and they've said they've overwhelmingly got a positive response from people in the city as they've been out there. I did want to say he also talked about the new COTS shelter that just opened this week. That's a huge resource for the city now, as far as having another 50-some beds that we're able to have here in Burlington, and hopefully that can get us on our way to address a lot of the crises that are before us. I'll leave it there, for those summary, and I'll leave a couple, what's left on to you, Becca, if you had to fill in some blanks here. So.
Thank you, buddy. I don't think there are any blanks, but I'll make some additions. I do also want to just briefly, the chief did such an incredible job. I wish he was still in the room, but I want to thank him for coming. Oh, can you guys not hear?
Not too well.
Yeah, it's just a little quiet.
Yeah, maybe she'll be able to turn you up.
All right. I think you probably can turn up the volume in the room, but I'll just talk loud. Is that better? Okay. So just such great, I was glad to hear, Megan, you share some appreciation for the chief. I totally agree with you. He's just incredible at his job. We are so lucky to have him. And even though this is a small audience here, just in case any potential police recruits are listening to this, as an elected official in Burlington, we welcome your application. I think I speak for so many on the council when I say that things are different here than they were in 2020. And we have learned how valuable our police officers are the hard way in some ways. And I don't think I've ever lived in a city where I have heard people express so much appreciation for our sworn officers as we do in Burlington. So just really echoing those words of appreciation and encouragement for people to sign up and apply to be a Burlington police officer. And I think the chief's really on the right track with that recruitment strategy. Also want to just shine some more light on the governor's 14-point plan. You know, I am often the first to say that I sometimes disagree strongly with some of the governor's policies, but what we've seen here is a process that was a tripartisan process where all of the leaders involved really put their personal politics aside in the interest of just doing our job and serving the greater good. And I'm really grateful to Mayor Mulvaney Stanek and to Governor Scott for coming together and doing that. And I think it's especially powerful against the backdrop of what goes on right now in the national political landscape. And throughout this whole process, I just was reminded of how, you know, Vermont is different than the rest of the country. And oftentimes that's a really good thing. And I think we can all be proud of that. So those are just some sort of public safety and policing comments. Um, I will also echo in the transportation committee, which I serve on, we've been talking a lot about traffic safety. And Greg, I know I've spoken with you about that in detail, and I definitely support any efforts. I think I see Bram there. If at the state level we could do something to advocate for traffic cameras, there is deep support here in Burlington for that. And I would love to kind of talk about that offline. And we were really heartened to see. So last week, I think it was on Tuesday in the transportation committee meeting, we had a whole discussion about Route 127 and the dangerous conditions there. And the very next day, the governor announced that he was sending troopers and they were going to be deployed to that same street. So I think when we come together and we ask for what we need, and we keep asking and do it over and over, I think it does work. And so I was so happy to see that. And I'll just finish with a brief update on the Charter Change Committee, which I am the chair of. Right now, we have 3 issues in front of us that may end up on the ballot for March. The first is a charter to add the racial equity, inclusion, and belonging office to the City of Burlington's charter as an official department, which I believe is very important. And I'm pretty much 100% sure that that will end up on the ballot. It has full support as long as we can meet the deadlines and work with the department to do that. The second one is an issue of raising our debt capacity for the city. We're getting more details and looking into all the finances of that. That is kind of just a I would describe it as a financial logistics and management type of resolution. It wouldn't immediately impact anyone's tax obligation or anything like that. And the final one would impact people's taxes in some way, shape, or form, and that is a tax abatement for on property taxes that would be based on your home's value. And some people would get relief, and then some people would get charged more based on the threshold and the calculation of your home's value. So for that one, we're taking more testimony and we're digging into all the details because it's a pretty complex offering or complex proposal, and we need to really make sure that we are going to understand it kind of forwards, backwards, and side to side to make sure there's no unintended consequences that haven't been discovered, and make sure we hear from all the stakeholders involved and get their opinions and expert feedback. I will stop there. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you both. I have one initial question.
Sure.
I actually wanted to ask Chief Burke, but you mentioned the state troopers who have presence in the city now. They're not just like here to enforce the law, but to be a visible safety presence, which is great. But I'm curious if they were to see something happening, are they able to help, or are they just kind of having to watch it happen?
I think they would be able to help, but I think that the idea would be to have Burlington Police, then come and and back them up, but yeah, support them in some way. You know, there is a memo of understanding between surrounding towns too. That goes on the night shift if an officer has to leave a scene to go somewhere else, you know, potentially you know, another town's officer could be there as long as there's one Burlington police officer there. Say if there was like multiple calls and there's some, you know, emergencies of that respect, I think that would probably apply in the same vein. I would confirm that with the chief, but you know, that's the way I've understood those kind of memorandums of understanding within law enforcement to operate in that way. I think there would have to be a Burlington police officer there for an enforcement type of action. I think they could probably de-escalate and those type of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I guess just briefly, I would add, I think if there is an emergency taking place and somebody is being harmed, I think we can count on the VSP to step in and help out. So, you know.
Yeah, I would expect. I was just curious about rules of it, you know.
Yeah.
With certainly there being lots of things about the National Guard not being able to do things, or like what the rules are and all that in different cities around the country. I'm just always curious what the guidelines are.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Megan, you had a question.
Yeah, this goes back a couple of years, but I thought that we got this opioid settlement that, you know, originally Scott was opposing, but then they released the funds, and that there was going to be some kind of new center for opioid addiction that was going to help with that side of our, you know, mental health problem. That's just hasn't been mentioned in the public agenda as long as, you know, I mean, I don't watch every little thing, believe me, but it seems like that conversation has gone quiet. And I've heard some subtle suggestions as to why, but I kind of like this opportunity to ask you two, what's happened to that project and why is the conversation so quiet?
You know, I can't speak 100% to why the conversation is quiet. I know Teresa Vizina, who is in the mayor's office, who is heading that discussion. I believe she was having a Zoom tonight. I'm not under, I'd have to look back at my schedule because I was you know, had a conflict on that about more conversations with regards to that. That money has been allocated. The city council did authorize the city to take some of that money earlier this year to start the process of potentially locating and you know what it would take to stand this up. I would say, you know, at this point, I'm not sure if you saw the 7 Days article. You know, the U.S. attorney has said and come out explicitly saying that they would prosecute people who went in there and used illicit drugs. Yeah, so I think this changes the conversation in my mind, and I won't speak for Councilor McKnight. In my mind, this changes the conversation drastically. I think this gives us an opportunity to maybe ask whether we should be reallocating these funds in other ways in regards to the opioid crisis. You know, not necessarily an OPC, you know, overdose prevention center, but could these funds be reallocated in another way to handle this crisis? You know, as we can debate very long and lengthy discussion on what, you know, the efficacies of an OPC, whether it's right or wrong. But what I would say is, you know, if people are going to go there under the guise of something being safe and then hopefully get into treatment but be arrested, I think that changes the conversation on whether we should be standing this up or how those funds should be allocated and used by the city. I would like those funds to stay in the city if we cannot stand up what has been approved by prior councils. But I do think this changes the conversation.
When did that? I mean,
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I think 7 Days did an article on it, and the U.S. attorney said that they would prosecute on it. So I don't know why the conversation is quiet, you know, but I would tell you it is something that I think about a lot as far as, you know, taking on this role about how we handle this crisis and how in a lot of ways I'd like to put recovery as the cornerstone of how we deal with this. I do believe harm reduction has a place. But again, I'm not speaking for the council here. This is my own opinion. I want people to understand that. But I do believe that recovery needs to be the center point of this conversation.
Yeah. I'll just add a couple of points. And Megan, to answer part of your question, also, I mean, I think Buddy, that was a great lay of the land that you shared. In terms of a little bit more specifics on the process and the city, we are essentially at the point where Teresa and her team are assessing, and there's also an outside organization who is consulting and running this process and doing the research and evaluating the data on on site locations. So that's basically where we are in the process. Is they're researching potential site locations, and the next step, if we were to stand this up, would be for them to come back to the community and the council and basically tell us our options for where this would go. But I do agree with Councilor Singh that the dynamics of the U.S. Attorney's Office are a really important piece of this puzzle, for so many reasons, because we don't want to invest in a tool that's just going to, get cracked down on and have everybody arrested who are, already these quite vulnerable people. We want to use that money to really support people. So we have to keep a close eye on those signals.
Thank you.
I thought I read it either in 7 days or Free Press that the number of beds that are opening up at the Social Security building. There was another area that their beds were being removed, so the net gain is not as great as the number of beds in the Social Security building. Am I wrong? Did I read that incorrectly?
Yeah, I would have to look into that. I don't know 100%, like the
That
net.
is true.
Is that true? Yes. Okay.
It's true, but it's still a pretty big gain. I want to say it was about 20 or 25 beds lost, and what is it, Buddy? Maybe 58 or 65
Yeah.
beds gained, something like that. And it's also more, the new facility is available more often. I think the hours are much more comprehensive. I think the first, I could be wrong, please fact check me, but I believe that the former location was perhaps just open overnight and the new one is open more often. So I think there's, it's not just the beds that we're gaining, we're also gaining more access to the services, as far as I remember.
Thanks.
Not 20 beds,
That's one.
not 20, that's so not 20 J. So the old one was 36 bed and then the new one is 56.
All right, Fareed, thank you. I was close.
Thank you.
And there's about 300 estimated still beds.
Somebody asked ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So we really need 300 beds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We used to need 320, now we need 300.
Yeah. And it was estimated, I don't know if anybody went to the Recovery First discussion that was held at Zero Gravity. And they're saying, we could use 300 to 500 recovery beds, where people could be in a facility working on their recovery. Recovery's hard. Let's be honest about what it takes to bring people away from opioid addiction. It's a day-to-day challenge. And if you're not in the right environment and there's triggers all around you, we're not going to be successful in this unless we take this seriously. And seeing people, in my own life that have gone through addiction, the environment does matter, and that stability is a huge step in providing that space for the people to get well. And they become lawyers, they become, very productive members of our community. And, I think we should invest in that for people.
Any other questions? And we're running a little long, but okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having them.
Thank you for staying late.
Thanks, Becca, for
we still have one more thing. We'll make it very brief, I think. It's our NPA business. We are always looking for new members of the steering committee. So if you find yourself here often and you have ideas, if you have an interest in participating or want to help out, we would love and welcome additional members of the steering committee. I forget, are we term limited? I can't remember what we found out.
Yes.
Are we? Okay. We turn into pumpkins eventually. And we would love anyone who's interested to come talk to us about it.
That also should make it easier for people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'd like to do it, because you are
Yes.
not committing to forever.
That is
You're
true.
only committing to a few years.
Yes.
Can I interrupt for a sec?
Yeah.
Mark Howe seems to have dropped his wallet. Does anyone know where he lives or live near him?
Well, I know he's on Spruce Terrace, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about that.
You take that to him.
No problem.
Oh, gosh, you're just gonna appreciate that. So that's all to say that if you have any interest in joining the steering committee, we'll put some additional calls out on Front Porch Forum. But we welcome that, and not just the steering committee, but we're always looking for topics, things people want to talk about. So whether during a meeting, afterwards, we typically we actually always include a Google Sheet form on our newsletter. Please let us know what you want to talk about. What city officials you'd love to have here. It's incredible that Chief Burke said he'd be happy to come back that soon. He's a busy guy. So that's really heartening. And we want more engagement. So that's it for the steering committee. And then Dale, would you be willing to speak about the community development
I
grant?
think maybe Charlie is looking.
Oh, Charlie.
Okay.
I get that
So-
feeling.
I've been on steering committees for a long time. And so I'll just say here what I've said many times, that like wards 2 and 3, that I'm on the steering committee at the moment for Ward 3, but I'll get off in an instant if somebody wants to get on in my place. And the reason I say that is because I know that I can still go to the steering committee meetings because it's an open meeting and have as much influence on what happens with the steering committee and the NPA. You see, you don't actually have to be a steering committee member. So if people have any interest at all in participating in the steering committee of your NPA, just go to the steering committee meeting. You don't actually have to be on the steering committee, just go to the meeting and participate. And then if you want to step up and actually get on the committee, feel free. But it's sort of like the CDBG thing that's up right now. And people say, oh, well, the reason I'm mentioning it, because you're going to mention it, is that they say, oh, there's only one representative from each ward. Well, you can use that if you want, but if you want to send a second person who will take over in case the first person can't. So these things are very flexible and you can participate if you have any interest. So don't say, oh, there's a steering committee and it's a certain size and that's the end of it. So there's always room for more participation. And I make that statement at the Ward 2 and the Ward 3 NPAs many times. And that's why our steering committees are always stuffed, because we never have less than 6. And we used to have like 12 people when 2 and 3 were together. And so people just need to know, if you want to participate in the NPAs or the steering committees, just talk to a steering committee member and say, I want to go to the next meeting and see what you guys do, and et cetera.
Well said.
Absolutely.
So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. So
I didn't know, do you guys meet separately from tonight?
Yes,
We typically meet
I didn't
once a
even know
month,
that.
about 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the meeting. That's how we plan the meeting.
No.
So, we spend about
An
an hour,
Yeah.
sometimes in person, recently mostly online. But we spend about an hour thinking about what topics to address, who's gonna connect with who's gonna make sure that Fareed brings us food, that kind of thing. And then, parcel out who's gonna follow up, like who's gonna contact the police chief, who's gonna contact Mary Danko, and make sure that the meeting all comes together.
And with the new, what was it called that was passed and,
Oh, the resolution.
Yeah, would that affect the steering committee structure or responsibilities or anything like that? I haven't read it. We should read it. I know.
We'll be.
I don't think so.
I mean, there's an open meeting here.
For each member?
Salary, payments? No. But I remember one thing stood out, open meeting, it will have to meet open meeting requirements, the state open meeting requirements, which I don't think would be too
Well,
onerous.
I think we already do.
We already
I think so,
do.
yeah.
We already
We
do.
post our agenda online,
Minutes,
yeah.
It's available, sure.
minutes.
I
Then
mean,
the
good
very
segue.
last thing,
Yes.
and Charlie made a brief allusion to it. So every year the city gets an allocation of money from the federal government, from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it is money that is intended to be allocated within the city for economic development and relief of poverty. So the city gets a bunch of grant applications, folks that want to use this money. And then there is a committee of citizens who decides, who makes a recommendation to the mayor of how that $600,000 pot of money should be spent. And so you read through the applications from all the people who would like grant funds, and you rank them and you evaluate them, and then you get together with a group of people from around the city, and together you work out an allocation. So like you get to spend $600,000 of somebody else's money to do all kinds of good things in the city. It is really, really rewarding. It's 3 meetings to do the whole thing, plus some time at home reading the applications and rating them. I did it for the last 2 years, and it's now time for somebody else to be the Ward 6 representative. So if anybody is interested, get in touch with me, because I can talk to you more about what's involved. Dale dale.azaria@gmail.com. I would love to fill you in. And it would be great to have somebody doing it.
What's the grant deadline for that program?
So the committee that allocates the money meets in January. I think the applications, the grant applications, I think are due around December 1st. And then Christine Curtis, who's a CEDO employee, works with the grantees to make sure the grants are complete, that the applications are complete, and she puts together the information. So one of the meetings is to train the people who are going to do this on like how to read the grant applications, what the criteria are, things like that. And then there's 2 different pots of money, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me, even though I did this for 2 years. But there are 2 different pots of money. And so we have one meeting for the smaller pot of money and one meeting for the bigger part of money, because there's different applications to each separate pot. I wish I understood why there were 2 separate pots, because sometimes you want to give more money to somebody who's in the wrong pot and you can't. But anyway, so
But the small pot of money is for smaller grants. Larger pot for
You
larger
would
grants?
think.
No, okay.
Italian.
So if I wanted to find out more about that program.
Oh, if you want to
General.
apply for a grant, I
Or
would
share that
either
information.
contact Christine Curtis at CEDO or look online and see if you can find the information online.
Christine Curtis, great.
Yeah, and she's terrific.
That's an old one.
Thank you, Dale. That is our full agenda, unless you had something, Nancy.
We forgot to thank Fareed.
Oh my
from-
Let me help out with that.
We also have 2 go containers, if you want to bring some of the food up, there's lots of food left too.
Yes.
So good.
I think we'll call that the end of this evening's meeting. Thanks everybody for being here, for being online. We'll see you all again next month.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good agenda, very interesting.
Did I get that?